Hi, it's Dr. Kim Lee, child psychiatrist here from Adelaide, and I am answering some questions by a SACE Stage 2 student, Bryan from Pembroke, who has written some great questions that has shown a lot of thought and prior research for his AIF, Activating Identities and Futures project, which is essentially helping students learn how to learn. And it's a great way to activate a young person to go out and seek information. And the best way that I find that helps me to learn is by actually explaining really complex scientific questions to people on YouTube. So thank you so much, Bryan, for helping me to learn today, because through socializing and reading up about my passion for gaming disorder and explaining it to people like yourselves, I'm actually learning about the topic too. So the first question about gaming addiction. Bryan asks, do you think the 4% incidence of gaming addiction is an underestimate, especially now that we came out of the COVID pandemic? Well, my colleagues from Macquarie University in New South Wales recently conducted a study, and they found about 3% of high school students had gaming disorder. And I think the data they collected was around the pandemic, so it's up to date. But when it comes to whether it's accurate or not, I think it's probably in that ballpark, around from, as low as 1% to as high as 10%. So it really depends on what kind of questions you're asking. So there are, surveys out there who might be asking about your addiction to video arcade machines, which is different to being addicted to a multiplayer online game or a mobile game. So it kind of depends on what criteria you're asking as well, but hopefully with the World Health Organization criteria that came out in 2018, 2019, we can all be on the same page and have a better representation of the data from a population perspective. So when it comes to whether it's an accurate estimate or not, 4%, I think 4% is about right. I think the data that you may have looked at was the Young Minds Matter data from 2015 that was done by the health department, and so 4% of all teenagers in Australia is about 78,000 teenagers Australian-wide. So whether it's 1% or 4% or 10%, it's still a lot of teenagers who are suffering from this problem, and adults. Second question, do you think the goalposts for the peak age of gaming addiction have now moved down to younger children in primary school, which could be more vulnerable to gaming addiction? That's a really interesting question. I haven't really thought about it too much, but the at-risk period is around about age 15 to 25. Is it getting younger? Potentially, but from my own experience clinically, younger primary age school students generally are protected by their parents, and primary school age children are more likely to listen to their parents when it comes to restrictions, and parents are more likely to place more limits on their child's access to video games. So are the goalposts. Goalposts, Potentially, the other reason why the goalposts may be moving is that there are very popular games like Roblox and Minecraft, which are popular with the younger school kids, but generally speaking, they are not playing to the really harmful and hazardous levels that I see with some teenagers and adults with other video games. There are children that I get referrals from, say, pediatricians who tell me a young person is soiling themselves, and when I ask them what they're doing, they do tell me that they are playing games like Minecraft and forget to go to the bathroom and actually defecate or urinate whilst playing. So that can be a problem. But I think as a general rule, younger kids are still forced to go to school that gives them kind of a break from video games, whereas when kids move to the high school years, they may start rebelling or school refusing or not going to school and start having more problems with their gaming. So, great question. I haven't seen that shift to the younger age group as yet, but it's not out of the question. Things can change as time goes by. The only thing that I do notice is that there are more younger, say, teenagers presenting with gaming problems and earning money as professional gamers. That is an issue that I've noticed that has come up more lately. There are multiple risk factors, this is the third question. There are multiple risk factors identified for gaming addictions, including the game itself, the players and their profiles and their environment or their situations. In your clinical experience, what do you see as your top 3 reasons for gaming addiction? Well, the top reasons obviously are the way these games are designed. And if you watch a 20-minute YouTube clip called Let's Go Whaling, the tips to monetize free-to-play games, that's a 20-minute video that explains every single recipe that they use to hook players, and they describe things like the 3 H's: hook, habit, hobby. Hook players with rewards, make it a habit, and then hopefully part of their lifestyle so they keep playing. So I have seen the 5 H's: hook, habit, hobby, hazard, and harm. People playing to the point where it's becoming harmful to their health, and then to the point where it's hazardous to their health and almost dying because they've played too much. And so if the video games were not created to be addictive in the first place, then we wouldn't have a problem. However, the other 2 main reasons are being male and teenage age. So definitely young boys are overrepresented and young men are overrepresented in gaming disorder, but also young people who might have impulse control problems such as ADHD, difficulty controlling their gaming time, because really when we're talking about attention, there's actually 2 different types of attention. There's visual attention, and then there's the attention that's required to complete difficult tasks like homework. So visual attention is looking at a screen, watching a fast-paced cartoon or action movie or playing a video game, and you just can't take your eyes off the screen. And the second one is reading a book, reading a paragraph, doing your homework, sitting for an exam. That is also very difficult to do. The 4th question: should we incorporate the awareness of gaming addiction into schools education? Yes, most definitely. I get invited to speak at schools all the time. We also know that in South Australia, the Premier is bringing a smartphone ban to all public schools from July 1st. And one of the main reasons is that smartphones are a distraction, whether you're playing video games or using it for social media. Also, it's a no-brainer for me to ban smartphones because of the cyberbullying aspects of smartphones and gaming. What do you think can be done in Australia to help with gaming addiction? Well, you might have seen my colleagues from New South Wales. They have set up a program on the central coast of New South Wales in Wyong. They had a documentary on this on Australian Story, where they did a pilot program based on a German study and a German program called SACE. And essentially, it's looking at tackling the main risk factors for a young person in gaming addiction, things like their environment, their ability to control their environment, self-esteem, those types of factors. And by supporting more programs to make it more available to other people other than in New South Wales, and help provide supports for people all over the country, then it's really going to help people with this problem. And lastly, if you can control the gaming industry, what strategies can be put in place to prevent gaming addiction? Well, in 2018, the Australian Senate met to decide whether they should ban loot boxes in video games, and they said under the Australian definition of gambling that loot boxes are technically not a form of gambling. So if you win something on Roblox, they say that you can't cash that virtual item out for real life money. But young people tell me all the time how they use third-party websites to cash their virtual items, their skins, and get money for that. So essentially turning games like this into a mini casino. And I think the Australian government are going to reconsider this again and making gambling, online gambling, or simulated online gambling less available to young people in Australia. So that's a really good strategy. There are countries like the Netherlands and in Europe, they have banned these types of game design aspects, so the randomization of rewards to protect young people. And in China, they've actually placed really heavy restrictions on young people's access to video games, restricting them to just 3 hours per week, 1 hour on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that's 3 hours per week. I'm not sure whether I would go that far to restrict young people's access, but you know, it's a very scalable option. I don't think many people would agree to something like that level of control in Australia. And in China, they police it by using facial recognition technology. So I don't think families would be happy with that either. But really, we have to level the playing field. If you make the rules for all games, for all gaming publishers, then they will be forced to pull back on those strategies in that video, Let's Go Whaling, the tips to monetization to free-to-play games, and then focus back on making games about the storyline, about the online experience, and placing restrictions to protect a young person's health and prevent them from becoming addicted to the video games. At the moment, young people can just download games for free. They don't really need to ask their parents for permission to download these games, and it's causing a lot of problems at home. And yeah, I think if you need to find some more resources on my website, there are a few different blog articles that I've posted, namely the profile of Singaporean teenagers that I help co-publish, co-author from 2015. That should be on my website. We have the article published by my friend, the unplugged psychologist Brad Marshall, who published a case study or a case series of young people in primary school who presented to his clinic. So that's a really good one. Of course, the Macquarie University study looking at the risk factors for young people for gaming disorder. And yeah, good luck with your project. You know, this is a great way to reach out, to apply your knowledge, apply some of those hypotheses, the curiosities that you want to answer, and get an opinion from an expert who has had experience in this area. I really think it's a great way for you to do that mini survey. So you've done that mini survey and you've found that, of course, 90% of your friends surveyed play video games. So that's very common now. A majority play for more than 6 hours per day. So if you do 6 hours, 6 times 7 is, what's that, 40, is it? 42, is it? 42 hours, that's like a full-time job. So when we did that commentary in Singapore, we found that people with problematic gaming presenting to the clinic on average gamed 45 hours per week. So that's like a full-time job. So 6 hours per day is a lot. Just think about what you could be doing, how you could be better spending your time with that time. Majority 5 to 10 years. Wow, that's 4 times per week. So, okay, 6 hours 4 times a week. So that's a little bit better. 6 times 4 is 24, isn't it? 24 hours. Is that normal? I would like to think that you know, a few hours per day, you could at least then, you know, do your chores, do your homework, do your other activities, play some sport, get some physical activity. A majority of the people you surveyed play for fun, boredom, escape, or some stress. So definitely agree with that. Most people, majority of people, play for fun and can continue to play for fun. But if you play to the point where it's taking over your life, it then becomes miserable. It becomes a misery in your life. A majority felt the gaming affected school grades and sleep. So if it's affecting your life, then you need to look at your habits and then start making changes to your habits and protecting the times that you value. So if you value sleep, of course we have to value sleep. After a long day at school, you need your sleep to consolidate all the things that you've been learning. And when you're sleeping, your brain is actually clearing out toxins. It's removing and replacing and replenishing your brain cells, because your brain cells, when they work out, they produce toxins. So by sleeping and allowing your brain to rest, that's how you remove it. There's no other way. Over billions and billions of years, we haven't figured out a way to remove those toxins safely and to recover and feel refreshed in the morning, ready for the next day. So if only your sleep was the one thing that you protected, you're going to already cut out a lot of your gaming. So if you make sure you get your 8 hours, you know, if you wake up at 7 a.m. to go to school at 8 o'clock, then you're definitely needing to go to bed by, you know, 10, 10:30, winding down, and then falling asleep at 11. If you've got one of those smartwatches, I do, you can actually track the quality of sleep. So if you're actually going to look at my watch, you can actually see I actually had a really bad sleep last night. My sleep quality was poor. My sleep score was 36 out of 100, and I only got 4 hours. and I woke up early this morning to go for a swim. So I'm going to be suffering today. My brain isn't going to be functioning at full capacity compared to if I had a good quality of sleep. So the sleep length and the sleep quality is really important. And so I use these metrics to go, okay, I need to have an early night's sleep tonight. I need to not stay up late watching Netflix or doing emails or looking at my phone in bed. I have to make sure I protect my sleep and catch up on that sleep later today. And the majority plays a multiplayer online game. So, multiplayer online games. We're social creatures. We like to play because we want to connect with our friends. We want to have fun. And some of us are competitive. We like to win and compete against real players than computer players. And the trend that I'm seeing with young people nowadays is that all they want to do is have fun, be silly, and these virtual worlds are essentially virtual theme parks. They're like the virtual Disneylands, virtual dream worlds, virtual Universal Studios. And what I'm having to explain to people is that when you buy a ticket to Disneyland, you buy the ticket for the day, you go on some rides, have fun, and you go home at the end of the day. The only people that keep coming back to these theme parks are the people who are lowly paid workers who work there every day. So if you're going back into these worlds every day, spending 6 hours every day, then all you really are is a lowly paid worker. Now, even when I speak to some of my patients who are professional esports gamers, when we look at how much time they're spending training, practicing, that monthly wage that they're getting from winning tournaments, from their Twitch streamers, from their YouTube streams, it's only working out to be about $30 per hour. And for a teenager, I know that's a lot, but you have to be realistic and look at how much time you're actually investing, and is this time worthwhile and time well spent. So thanks again, Brian, for all your questions. I hope I've answered all your questions satisfactorily. Your questions were great, and if you have any more questions, please do send them through. And for anyone else wanting to do an interview like this, send your questions, but please do your research. Watch some documentaries, look at my blog posts, watch other videos like this, and get a better picture, and then come up with some questions that has, shown some thought that is beyond, what is gaming addiction. Anyone can look that up. But essentially, great job, Brian. Great job on answering some high-level questions that has shown you've done your research, and all the best with your project. Hope you get good grades. See ya.